This is Sarah Louise Hillam. She is my tormentor. Sarah has in the past made 3 harassment claims against me.
While on each occasion I was found to be innocent, I now have a police record that simply states I was arrested and detained on suspicion of harassment. This is totally unfair, as I am in fact innocent. Despite all the evidence that proves me to be innocent, the police still suspect I have harassed Sarah Hillam, but they are unable to prove it. That same suspicion has spilt over into the civil courts and infected a number of district judges. A very good example of this is, recently I made an attempt to bring Sarah Hillam to book for the lies and perjuries she has committed when bringing her bogus harassment claims. In my evidence I made the claim that I was found to be innocent by a magistrate's court. The county court judge said, "No court will pronounce you to be innocent." My reply to this was, "Are we not all innocent until proven guilty?" The judge was highly amused by my reply and actually laughed.
Injustice 1. Why are the police and the civil courts ignoring a serious case of fraud?
Sarah Hillam made an application to become our tenant during July 2012. We advertised our property to rent on Gumtree. If any of you have had dealings with Gumtree, you will know that all replies to adverts are sent to Gumtree and then forwarded on to the seller. This is a safety feature against scamming. From Gumtree Mail. Sent Sunday, June the 24th, 2012, 10:49 am.to s.105@mail.gumtree.com. Subject: Sarah replied to your ad. Bungalow to let.for your safety email addresses are now masked by Gumtree. Replying to this email will send your reply via Gumtree for your protection. You have received a reply to your ad. Bungalow to let.
Dear Bob and Anne, I have seen the ad on Gumtree for your property that you are advertising. I was just wondering, would you be happy to accept tenants on long-term disability benefits? As I have cancer, and I am moving to Swansea to be closer to my parents, who live in the same area as your property for rent. Also, would you be prepared to accept a bond certificate from Swansea Bond Board as our deposit? Also, would you be prepared to lower the rent to £115 pwk? Regard Sarah.
In reply I sent .hi, Sarah, give us a call on 017 or 079. Sometime after 17.00 on Monday to discuss what you want and to see what we can do to help you. Cheers.
Hi Bob, thank you for getting back to me. I am sorry I have not called you today. I have just checked my email, as I have been at hospital all day getting my cancer treatment and thought it was a bit late to call you, as I did not want to disturb you both late at night. I will call you tomorrow after 5 p.m, if that is okay with yourselves. Much appreciate anything you will be able to do for us. Regard Sarah and Erin.
Soon after, Sarah phoned me and told me she was living in Doncaster with her boyfriend's mother. Sarah explained that her cancer was a brain tumor which was inoperable and the doctors had given her 8 months left to live. This is why she was so desperate to move to Swansea to be close to her parents for the time she had left. We then made arrangements for her parents who lived locally to view the property. Shortly after this, arrangements were made for Sarah's parents to view the property. John and Mary Bolam viewed the property. While they were walking around the bungalow, I asked John Bolam about his daughter's poor health. John Bolam said there is nothing the doctors can do. At the end of this viewing, my wife and I had heard enough, and I told John and Mary Bolam they can tell Sarah she and Erin will be our new tenants. My wife and I had discussed it the night before, and we both agreed. Sarah must have the tenancy. We lowered the rent from £135 a week to £114 a week, and lowered the bond to £500 from £1,000, and allow the bond to be paid over time. We did our best to help this poor young lady in her last few months. We would take a small loss in revenue, but it was only for 8 months. Soon after, Sarah and Erin arrived to sign the tenancy agreement. Mary and John Bolam came with them. Everyone was full of smiles. A good friend of ours agreed to witness the tenancy agreement with John Bolam becoming the guarantor. Shortly after Sarah Bolam and Erin Hillam moved into our bungalow, everything was going okay. I left them to it and did my best not to disturb them. I only went to collect the odd letter that had been delivered to the bungalow for us. This was after Sarah had phoned me to say there was mail for us to pick up. The CO2 incident. I had a second job delivering pizza 3 nights a week. I was in work when my wife phoned me. My wife told me there had been a gas leak at the bungalow. I rushed there as quickly as I could. When I arrived, I saw a fire tender and an ambulance with their blue lights flashing outside my bungalow. As I walked up the drive, I could see Erin wobbling around the front lawn with a paramedic in close attention. I asked, "Is he okay?" and the medic gave me a thumbs up sign. I went into the bungalow. All the windows were open. As I walked into the living room, I saw Sarah laying on her settee. Her eyes were closed, and she had a mask over her mouth and nose. At her side, I could see a bottle of oxygen. This was connected to the mask on Sarah's face. I asked the paramedic at her side if she was okay. He looked up at me with a very worried expression on his face and said nothing. Then Sarah shuffled and let out a loud moaning sound. I heard a voice behind me saying, "Are you the landlord?" I turned around and saw a fireman. He introduced himself as the senior fireman and asked me where the gas boiler was located. I told him it was in the attic. He asked whether the boiler was ventilated, and I offered to show him. As we walked through the kitchen, the fireman said he had checked the gas cooker hob and no gas leaks there. We both inspected the boiler vent and saw that nothing was obstructing it. We both went to the attic entrance, and another fireman arrived with a stepladder. He opened the attic a small amount and pushed a detector of some kind into the attic. A few seconds later, and after checking the detector, he entered the attic and called to inspect the boiler. As this was going on, I showed the senior fireman the CO2 detector on the wall. He took it off the wall. As he did this, it made a small noise. He shook it harder and it made more noise. The fireman came down from the attic and reported no gas leaks up there. I tested the CO2 detector and the alarm went off as it should. But when shaken, it made a funny noises. I suggested I go to my house and get the CO2 detector from there. As I did this, the senior fireman whispered something into the ear of the paramedic next to Sarah Bolam. When I returned, the ambulance was gone. Tests were done on the new CO2 detector, and it did not make any funny noises when shook. The fireman placed it on the wall, and I put the defective detector into my pocket. We both turned to leave. I did not say anything to Sarah or Erin. They were sitting on the settee, both having made a miraculous recovery. The senior fireman and I walked down the drive. I said to him quietly, "That was some performance." The fireman said I cannot comment. We parted company and I returned to work. I had a second gas safety inspection done 2 days later, and everything was as it should be. There were no more gas leak emergencies after that. Well, that is a good question. I did not question it. I mean, how do you ask someone, how are they still alive? I put it down to a miracle of medical science. Or just good luck. Sarah and Erin had got married, and in January 2018, Sarah was 8 months pregnant. Sarah and Erin sent me a notice to quit letter, giving 1 month's notice. A lot had happened in that 5 years and 6 months. Shortly after Sarah and Erin Hillam left our property, the stuff really hit the fan. What had gone before was child's play in comparison. Sarah and Erin vanished, giving me a bogus forwarding address. I was left with the refurbishment of our property, so I could rent it out again. There was a lot of damage done, which was left to me to repair and pay for it all. My problem was on 25th January 2018. I was due to go into hospital to have a 3-hour heart operation to fit an ICD into my chest. With the help of some good friends, the refurbishments got done. A few things had been going on in the background. I'll come to all that later, but I discovered where Sarah and Erin had moved to. So I started civil proceedings to take them to court to recover my losses. It was then Sarah Hillam made her first harassment claim and her MG11 witness statement. An MG11 witness statement comes with a warning. This statement is true to the best of my knowledge and belief, and I make it knowing that, if it is tendered in evidence, I shall be liable to prosecution if I have willfully stated in it anything which I know to be false or do not believe to be true. Basically, this is a warning of perjury. Perjury comes with an automatic prison sentence. Sarah Hillam made and signed this MG11 witness statement at Penland Police Station on 9 February 2018. This statement was later submitted as evidence to a trial at Swansea Magistrates Court. This then means by law, if Sarah Hillam is found to have told a lie in her MG11 witness statement, then Sarah Hillam has committed perjury and she should automatically go to jail. So let us take a look at what Sarah Hillam had to say in her statement. On page 1, paragraph 3, around the end of June, beginning of July 2012, I and my partner Erin Hillam decided to rent a bungalow at 5 Heel from Bob after we found an advert for his bungalow on Gumtree. Prior to this I lived up Doncaster with Erin's mother, but I wanted to move to Penland so I could be closer to my parents to support them, as my father had just been treated for a brain tumor. Sarah Hillam's problem is a simple one. Sarah has to prove which statement is true, the Gumtree emails, or her MG11 statement. With the aid of some medical records, Sarah Hillam can quickly prove both to be true. But if she cannot prove any of them to be true, then 3 crimes have been committed: fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud and perjury in her MG11 witness statement. They all come with a prison sentence. But there is a contradiction. Based on probability alone, what are the chances I lower the rent and bond to give the tenancy to Sarah and Erin? I had other people interested in the bungalow. There were 2 other couples, both working and both with 2 children. They could afford the rent of £135 per week and the £1,000 bond. So why would I knowingly take a loss of over £5,000 in lost revenue by giving Sarah and Erin, both self-unemployed people who seemed to have little prospect of ever amounting to very much? They could not even afford to pay a £500 bond. I ask you in all honesty, how probable would it be that I would willingly do that, unless I had a very good reason to do it? This makes any explanation for the difference in the emails and MG11 statement to be very obvious lies. There is other evidence available that categorically proves Sarah Hillam to be a prolific liar in her emails and MG11 witness statement. If Sarah could prove her emails and witness statements to be true, she would have done it by now. She has not. Just based on what I have told you so far, Sarah Hillam should be in jail. Is Erin Hillam innocent in all of this? I think not.
In December 2012, while I and my partner were in bed, the CO2 alarm that had been fitted prior to us moving in went off. I recall that I rang Bob first, but he said to me, "Reset the alarm, open the windows and go back to bed." I was not happy with this, so I decided to ring the fire service. The fire service came out and told us that there had been a CO2 leak, and they were not happy that the boiler was in the loft with no ventilation. Due to this, I and my partner received medical attention for the paramedics at scene. When Bob arrived at the scene, he was very aggressive and was shouting at the fire chief. The fire officer advised that the CO2 alarm should be changed, but Bob would not do this unless I paid for it.
If you recall my account of the CO2 incident, you will immediately notice a very big difference between my version and Sarah Hillam's MG11 sworn witness statement version. But before I go any further, I ask you to remember the warning at the start of the MG11 witness statement. If you tell lies, you go to jail. When I was arrested, during my interrogation by the police, the CO2 incident came up. I gave the 2 police officers my account of events, and my solicitor chipped in. The police can get the fire officer's report to see whose version of this is true. Well, the police did not bother to do this, or if they did, they never used it in their evidence. During a meeting at my solicitor's office, I suggested we get a copy of this fire officer's report. My solicitor made inquiries, and I paid £75 for the senior fire officer's incident report. This is an unbiased, true account of the CO2 incident. On page 1 of the report, under the heading, Attendance, it states, victims involved, no. Evacuation, no. Attack on firefighters, no. Sarah Hillam states in her MG11 sworn witness statement, when Bob arrived, he was very aggressive and was shouting at the fire chief. Well, Sarah Hillam, your pants are ablaze, my dear. If you tell lies in an MG11 statement and it is produced in court, you go to jail. Well, in reality, that is what is supposed to happen. Under the heading, Other Details, were hazardous materials involved? No. Under the heading, Persons, number of casualties, 0. Number of casualties over the age of 16, 0. Under the heading Notes, the senior fire officer states, I don't think any hazardous materials were involved. The alarm would actuate if it was waved around by hand. It was making different noises, but not sounding properly. The landlord changed it for the one in his house, and it did not actuate at all. So no gas leak, just a faulty detector apparently. No gas leaks detected. So why were Sarah and Erin acting as if they had been poisoned by a gas? I was arrested for the harassment of Sarah Louise Hillam. I was later charged with the harassment of Sarah Louise Hillam. I was put under bail conditions and treated like a criminal. All based on suspicion alone. You see, when finally all this went to a full trial at Swansea Magistrates Court, after Sarah Hillam and the police officer in charge of the investigation had given their evidence, the magistrates threw the case out. Based on no evidence. You see, Sarah Hillam was exposed as committing perjury while giving evidence under oath on 3 occasions. The lady police officer left the court in tears. My solicitor tore this lady police officer a new one. The CPS had zero evidence any harassment had ever taken place. The magistrates did nothing about Sarah Hillam's perjuries, so later I reported them to the police. I was told by a police officer, the police no longer do people for perjury, as the very nature of a court case is. One side is telling lies, the other side telling the truth. So no action was taken against Sarah Hillam by the police for telling lies in her evidence and while under oath in court. All done to get an innocent man arrested. But being innocent and telling the truth matters very little today in a court. A win or loss all depends on how convincing you are when putting your case. No wonder the district judge laughed when I said we are all innocent until proven guilty. This, my gullible friends, is reality. In the eyes of the law we are all guilty until proven innocent. I now have 3 reports for harassment on my police record. No mention of me being innocent, only that I have been arrested and detained for harassment. While Sarah Hillam and her husband Erin Hillam walk around as free as the birds. So what happened with the fraud, I hear you cry? There is another story about an investigation into this fraud. That came to nothing and was dropped mid-investigation with no genuine reason given for doing that. I made a fuss about it and I was asked by the police to make a statement, and this statement would be looked at by a detective inspector. I made a statement and gave a full account of all the convincing and true evidence I had. Shortly after, a reply came back from the police DI. The DI said while there is evidence of fraud, there is no evidence such as forged references or forged payslips, and so the evidence is inconclusive, so no further action. I replied, one of your criteria for a proper investigation has been fulfilled. There is claim of being on long-term disability benefits. That being a fraudulent untrue claim of an assured income such as a payslip would be. I got back a reply that simply said, no further action. So the police has no interest in serious fraud or blatant perjury. Despite all the evidence being laid out in front of them as if I was dealing with a 5-year-old. No further action. It would seem that everyone being guilty until proven innocent has a bit of a blurry line. Yet I somehow got taken to court that exposed there to be zero evidence of any harassment having ever taken place. Seemingly on suspicion and an overactive imagination of a lady police officer. Talk about injustice, my God. The police are now a law unto themselves. Where they can apparently aid and abet a criminal in getting away with serious crimes. Yet millions of people still think the police are there to protect them. This is a very cruel joke being played on the British public. It would seem we are all guilty until proven innocent, but some of us are more guilty than others. At the discretion of an ultra-woke police officer, who has the attention span of a goldfish. There is no justice. I am sure I will soon be getting a knock at the door with the police, claiming I am harassing Sarah Hillam again. But that may not happen, because all the mess that has gone before will come spilling out. Like a pig's guts in a slaughterhouse. I am as sure as eggs are eggs. The police do not want that to happen, as many police officers' jobs will be at risk.